What's up YouTube? Welcome back, my name's Tony. Today we're going to talk about a really useful mixing technique known as sidechain compression. Sidechain compression is when you use the signal from one of your tracks to trigger a compressor placed on a different track. So why would you need to do that? Well, there's plenty of great uses for sidechain compression. Say for example, you've got a great sounding bass track and a great sounding kick track, but the two of them just aren't quite playing together as nicely as you would like. Wouldn't it be nice just to be able to duck that bass track every time the kick drum hits? Well, enter sidechain compression. So thankfully, Reaper makes it very easy to set this sort of thing up. What we're going to do is open up just an instance of Recomp, Reaper's stock compressor, and we're going to create a send from the kick drum track to that plugin. Now the easiest way to do that is to bring your mouse over to the routing box here, click on that, and drag it up to the box where it says 2-4 in, 2 out. That'll automatically set up a send to this compressor. Now next, you would go down to where it says detector input and switch that from main input L plus R to auxiliary input L plus R. I've quickly set this compressor with a high ratio and a low threshold just for the sake of this example. But if we play through this song now, you'll see that the gain reduction is only being triggered when the kick drum hits. So I've just set this to a little bit more appropriate of a level. I've got it set for about 4 to 4.5 decibels of gain reduction when the kick drum hits. So here's how that track sounds without the sidechain compressor on. And here it is with the compressor on. You can hear how it really helps that kick drum to cut through the mix just by bringing the bass guitar down in volume by a few decibels. Here's another situation where sidechain compression comes in really handy. You're getting down to your mix and you realize the snare sound just isn't right. So what do? You sample it. But there's inevitably a lot of snare sound coming in through your overheads, which could be clashing with the sample that you chose. But you spent so much time and found that perfect sample, so what do? Well, you sidechain the overheads from the snare drum track. So here's the snare drum track with the new sample and the overhead soloed out. But we want to hear a lot more of that snare close mic and a lot less of those overheads. So we're going to set up our instance of Recomp. Send our snare drum through it. And duck that snare in the overheads. You hear how just by ducking the overheads by a few decibels every time the snare hits, that snare sample comes through a lot more clearly. So the next audio example I'm going to give you is a little trick I like to use to get a nice blooming reverb sound off of a vocal track. The vocal track I'm using is courtesy of the group Vogue Villains, and it comes from their 2019 single, The Arsonist Gasolina.
When she walked in, she looked like death. Light fluid on her breath.
So let's say, for example, that I wanted to fill in the space in between those lines with a bunch of reverb, but I don't want to absolutely drown the rest of the signal in reverb. So I set up this nice plate reverb with about 2 seconds of decay on it to really fill out that space. But in doing so, it absolutely drowns out the lead vocal track. So what I like to do in this situation is sidechain the reverb from the lead vocal track. So we're going to set up our recomp from the vocal track to the compressor. Auxiliary input. I'm going to make it a fairly quick attack time. Lower the threshold a lot. Bring up the ratio.
When she walked in, she looked like death.
Let's make it a little slower release.
Light fluid on her breath. She looked at him, and when they locked eyes, everyone felt their demise.
There you go. Dries it up while the vocals are singing and then really helps the reverb to bloom in those breaks. With this technique also, you can use the release setting on your Sidechained compressor to control how quickly you want that reverb to bloom. You can do a much quicker release for a quicker bloom.
When she walked in, she looked like death.
Although you risk having it pop up in between words there, or a much longer release for a much later bloom.
When she walked in, she looked like death. Light fluid on her breath.
And then of course you adjust the volume of the reverb track itself to fit it more in with the mix.
When she walked in, she looked like death. Light fluid on her breath.
These are just a few examples of the things that I most commonly use sidechain compression for, but there's an absolute ton of uses for this technique. And hopefully with a little bit of experimentation you can find some of your own favorite uses for sidechain compression. Well, thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you liked what you saw and would like to see more content like this one, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me some comments below to let me know how you use sidechain compression. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.